We met in Thunder Bay, Ontario, when I had worked for a number of years and was going back to school to the education program to get my teacher's degree. And Amanda was there as well.
Yeah.
And
so we were both going to Lakehead University together for our education degree. And the first day of class, I got to class before Kevin. It was just a small class of about 30 people. And I walked in, it's kind of a funny story, and I sat beside these three people I'd never met before, and I asked what their names were. And they said their names were Matt, Kat, and Pat.
Oh, okay.
And they had never met before either. And I said, well, I'm Amanda, and I sat down. And then a couple minutes later, Kevin came in, and I immediately took notice of him. And he walked right up to me, and he asked if he could sit beside me. I said, as long as your name doesn't rhyme with Matt, Kat, or Pat, you can sit here.
Really? Like...
So, and he said, I'm Kevin, and he sat down.
So that was our very first meeting, and she was the first person that I met in our education program. And yeah, it was, everything blossomed from there. We had a rigmarole of a year.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. It was fun, and it was amazing. I was in a place where I was going to be single forever. Like I was just in my independent kind of, I was going to go travel abroad after I got my teaching degree, and pretty much had it set up in my mind that I was going to be single. And Amanda took me completely by surprise. And yeah, I felt like it wasn't necessarily a choice. It was just, I walked in and I saw her, and
that was it.
Drawn to her.
Yeah. I felt the same way. I think I fell really fast and hard for Kevin, and it was such an incredible year, that first year of our relationship, and almost 10 years.
Yes.
So we just got married this summer, but we've been together for a long time, so we know each other quite well.
Right when our education program had ended, we started dating in and around that Christmas period. So we had already been together for the first couple months, often not necessarily like dating. We weren't boyfriend or girlfriend, but everybody in the program that we were with, that were our colleagues and friends and stuff like that, I don't know, it seemed like they're like, oh,
they
like,
always
what's going
teased
on?
us, and they knew
all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And and then I went away at Christmas holidays to Florida, and you went back down to Toronto.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember that's when that was the first time that I had actually separated and spent any time apart from you.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, wow, I really miss her. I really miss her. And it's almost like you don't really understand how much that's going to be there until you put some distance and space and a little bit of question marks in there. So that was the first time that I really felt that.
Yeah.
Like outside of just on the weekends and wanting to hang out.
So we were still together, but we had to do long distance for basically the second year of our relationship. Then I got a job teaching music down in Toronto. I traveled to Europe. And so we just did long distance for that whole year, which was really, really hard. I think it was hard on both of us.
Well, when I went up to the rural community, you went to France.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like and it was really difficult to talk to each other.
Yeah, but we made it work.
Yeah, and then so once that was done, we came back together, and I remember just trying to figure out how to see you every chance I could.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember when there was the opportunity to move down and be around you, and you were coming up, and I think that's when it shifted. So it was probably like the first year that we were together at school, and then after that, it was long distance, like France and Northern Ontario. So
and for me, I think, like I said, I fell really hard and quick for Kevin, and we met in 2011, and in 2013, one night, it was in September. So it was, maybe 2 years or a year and a half into our relationship. And I just knew, I just felt something where I knew. And so I wrote him a letter that I wouldn't give to him until the night before our wedding.
Oh, really?
Yeah, on that night. So, and I saved it. And then just 2 months ago, 9 years later, the night before our wedding, I gave him the letter. And so I thought that I guess that's just, I process a lot through writing. And I guess that was me understanding at that time that I wanted to marry him.
How many years ago was that? How many that you wrote the letter?
2013.
Okay. So 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's what I thought you said. It was just, that seemed like, wow. So you held on to this letter for 7 years.
So we had a very, very small venue. And so my immediate family came here. But I remember the night before I was staying with my parents, so she could be
here with my maid of honor.
Maid of honor and stuff like that. So I went just a couple blocks down the street here. but yeah, that's when I opened it. And there's a lot of stuff that's happening the night before a wedding, right? Like, and it was a great time for me to connect in with my parents. They don't live here. So I think it just reaffirmed what I already knew in my heart. Like, we had been together for so long and we had been on this journey together, and it just felt so incredible. It just took an incredible feeling and made it that much deeper.
I think we've both felt this for a really long time, and we've done so much together. We've built such a strong foundation, which I think we're both very thankful for before stepping into marriage. And we've lived a lot of places, and we moved abroad to Taiwan and lived there for a year together. So even something like that, I think we had to come close together very quickly in a different culture, in a different country. And just everything we've done in the past 9 years has been leading up to committing for life, you know?
I knew that Amanda you're incredible. And so, and we have good communication. So we always talk things through and stuff. So we always have a good sense of where each other's at. And we know when one another is going through a hard time and stuff like that. We know when to give space and stuff. And yeah. And so I remember when we came back, we had both just kind of turned to each other, and we had moved to Victoria, and we decided, oh yeah, I think it's time.
We were always on the same page, because before that we didn't quite feel ready to get married, because there was still so much we wanted to do, and we wanted to travel together and you know, explore and do all these things. But we moved back to Canada about 4.5 years ago and moved to Victoria, and that's when we both kind of turned to each other and we said, okay, we're ready to settle, we're ready to get married and stay in Victoria, you know.
Was there a proposal?
Yes.
Yeah. So the way I proposed is it's interesting. So I didn't want to have it planned down to the minute where I had something rushed that I had to get it done and then just break that tension and just pop the question. But Amanda's incredibly busy. She's very ambitious. She sings in the opera. She runs her own piano business. Plus she runs her own chamber choir that you're the president of. Plus you're a teacher. Like, she's just got a lot of things on her plate. And so the summer came, and I remember just having this conversation with her parents. When your dad came, it was like fast and furious, that trip. And there was like really no, anyway, so what ended up happening was that,
a little while later, we went about a year later.
Yeah, well, I was going to propose. There's 2 locations in Victoria that I'd set up that I was going to propose at. And every time that it was in that moment, like, everything was so rushed because we had to be back by a certain time. So we ended up going on a holiday to Hawaii,
to Honolulu.
And it just took the calendar and it wiped it clean. And
so it was perfect. It was like we were there for about a week, and right at the end of the week, we were leaving on, I think the Friday afternoon. And on Thursday night, we went to dinner in this really nice restaurant on the top floor of our hotel. And Kevin kind of put in a red herring, which was smart of him, because he said, tomorrow, before we catch our flight, we should go get pizza and watch the sunset. And so I thought, okay, well, that's pretty obvious. He's probably going to pop the question tomorrow when we do that. And we had this really great evening dinner, you know, and the waiter was great and everything. And then after dinner, we decided to go for a walk on this little secluded beach right across from the hotel that we hadn't checked out yet. It was this beautiful beach, and nobody was on the beach, and the moon was full. And we're just sort of holding hands, walking along the beach. And I was in front of him a bit, and he pulled my hand, and I turned around, and he was down on one knee and popped the question.
That's really nice.
Yeah, it was a really wonderful moment.
Yeah, and it was perfect because it's like everything had stopped, and like I knew that this was the moment.
It was the right moment.
And it's funny because I had originally planned to pop the question at the top of a pretty intense hike that we did 2 days earlier. And it was like, I don't know, I'm quite comfortable doing a lot of like pretty difficult hikes. And I think we were surprised by the hike. Like, you're on ropes, and then you have your feet against the wall, and you're not tied in. And it was a really good hike. And then you get to the top, and there's like, you basically are on a spine. There's these multiple spines and I had the ring in my pocket, and that's where I had planned the entire trip, that this was when I was going to propose, was at the top of this.
But then he didn't feel safe.
I was like,
because if I get super excited or something bad happens, it'd be horrible, right? But I thought it was funny because he said he had the ring in his pocket all week. Like, we were going in and out of the ocean, swimming, to things, and he had the ring with him every day that week in Hawaii.
So you guys are a COVID wedding.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how did that work? You had to change some plans up, and
Yeah, so we got engaged March 2019, and then So we definitely wanted a summer wedding because we're both summer kids, love being outside and love warm weather. So we planned for July 2020.
Right.
And so we started planning and everything, and we had a guest list of about 90, almost 100 people, you know, all the extended family, everybody. We're both from Ontario, so all our families and friends and everything. And then COVID hit this past March, and obviously nothing any of us could have expected. And we kind of put wedding planning on hold for a while. I think as everybody sort of just put a lot of things in their life on hold and went into lockdown. And then about 2 months later, you know, the wedding was getting close and we started talking about it again. And we realized we really missed planning it together, and we had to figure it out because it was going to look very different now. But we decided we still wanted to go ahead with it. And most of the people that I knew that were going to get married this summer had postponed it to next summer. And we didn't want to do that because, you know, we've been together almost 10 years and we were totally ready to get married in whatever form we could. And we felt that it was really important to do that regardless of a pandemic. So we did a lot of different plans. We had a lot of different venues booked that kind of kept falling through and didn't work out. We always had our reception venue solid, which was the Beach House restaurant in Cordova Bay. But the ceremony location kept changing. We wanted to do it at the chapel at UVic, but then UVic totally shut down. We wanted to do it at Camosun College on this outdoor space, but then they weren't taking any new reservations. We ended up doing it on the beach at the Beach House restaurant, which was just beautiful. It was perfect. Yeah. And we cut our guest list down to 40 people. And that too was wonderful. It was such an intimate, personal wedding. It's, I think, kind of what we pictured from the beginning. And we told all our guests when we did a little speech at the wedding, we said, thank you for coming. And, you know, everything had to change because of COVID, but honestly, it's still a dream wedding because our closest friends and families were there and our parents were there.
And I had a couple of immediate family members that couldn't make it, but we said that planning a wedding during COVID was like dancing with a tornado.
I'm really glad we did it. Like, I'm really glad we didn't postpone or anything, and we're married now. We don't have to worry about continuing to try and plan a wedding during COVID like everybody else is still trying to do, you know? So I'm really glad we're married.
It was incredibly intimate. And it was perfect.
It was special. Yeah.
What makes you work, and what advice do you have for other couples?
I think there's a lot of things that make us work. I think we're similar in a lot of ways, but we're very different in a lot of ways. And I think we balance each other out. I know my weaknesses are definitely Kevin's strengths, and vice versa. I think my strengths are your weaknesses. So we come together on a lot of things, but we have a lot of common interests. I think music is a big part. Yeah. And, you know, just outdoors and activity and lots of things we can do together. I just love being around Kevin. It's super fun to hang out with him. And I think that's a really important thing in a relationship, is if you can always have fun and you always want to hang out with the person and be goofy and silly, like that's a surefire way to make a relationship work long term, because I know years from now, I'll still always be having fun when I'm hanging out with Kevin.
But I'm also a very independent person, but so is Amanda. And
that's
actually,
a big one.
That's one of the things that it really attracted me to her, is that you have an incredible energy and presence about you. And I really appreciate that. And I also know that you're incredibly independent.
Yeah.
So she can have her own life, and then I can have my own kind of sphere as well. But we come together and we're strong together. So we just are fully present, and we can laugh. And I feel like if I didn't have, you know, like I need a lot of processing time. So I go for a lot of walks and just kind of work stuff out. And I play a lot of music, and so does Amanda. And so I think I process a lot of stuff through music as well, creating music. And I think you perform at much higher levels than I do. But I think that music grounding, we have multiple things that I think are our pillars, like that, those core things that we have in common, whether it's travel or music or just like having fun and just being yourself. And then just being able to be independent and then also really strong together. Yeah. And then just really enjoying that time.